Hello, class. Today we're going to go over Chapter 1. I have provided these PowerPoint slides for you. You can download them and follow along, keep notes if you'd like to. You could type them out. You can see down here on the bottom of your PowerPoint slides it says click to add notes. You can type out anything you want here. You can print them out and write them out if you want to, anything. But the slides are provided for you to follow along with this lecture. In this lecture, I'm going to talk about Chapter 1. We're going to look at the study of social problems. This is your first chapter, and this will be what we will be dealing with for the rest of the semester. We will be looking at many different types of social problems. Um, what is a social problem is the first question. Okay. It is an issue that negatively affects a person's state of being in a society. Of course, the definition says person, but of course, it could affect many different people. They do not have to be of the same race, gender, anything like that. It just affects everyone that is associated with it. Okay. At this time, I'd like you guys to stop the video and just write down some things, what you think are a social problem. Things like that come to your mind. All right, now that you're back after writing down, some of you may wrote down things such as unemployment, education, um, things like that are all social problems. Um, Things come from politics, voting rights, things like that may all be problems for you. Poverty, healthcare, and things like that are some things that affect a lot of groups of society. There could be potentially social problems with that, okay? Um, Sociology, the study of sociology, is what looks at social problems. Of course, if you don't know the definition of sociology, here it is: the study of social life, social change, and the social causes and consequences of human behavior. Okay? This is about how groups of people work within the environment, within society. Okay? The first thing we look at is a sociological imagination. Alright, so this is when we, as human beings, need to look beyond ourselves and look at the whole entire picture. Alright, the definition from your textbook is ability to look beyond the individual as a cause for success and failure and see how one society influences that outcome. So instead of attributing it to just the individual's failure, what in society failed that person? Okay. The first example that I can think of is when people look at a homeless person sitting on the street. Everybody right away looks at him and says, what did he do to get to this place? Well, maybe it wasn't his fault. Maybe there are other issues that cause him to end up homeless. Okay? Some of the things that we're finding out recently from studying homeless people is many of them have, a lot of mental illnesses. So a lot of them is not that, they put themselves there, it's their illness that contributed to them. Maybe not the lack of health care, getting treated for their mental illness. It's what's contributing to them to not be able to get a job, get a home, be able to feed themselves. It's a problem outside of that individual. Okay, you have the macro portion of it, which is a large scale point of view. It helps to understand how history and social structure affect people. Okay, micro is very small view. Okay, the biography, it's personal. Okay, macro would be like the country, worldwide, global. Macro is me, myself, within my community, how big. We look at the problems. Okay, there are issues, social problems that are on a global scale that affect everybody. Then there are some that are just micro, maybe to your location, your geography, where you live. A global one could be, not enough water, drinkable water. Of course, we have water everywhere, but we're not able to drink it. I know where I live in Portales, New Mexico, this is something we're facing. Our aquifer is running out of water. And so we're going to have the Ute project come through where they're supposed to bring water into this area. So you can see it's still on a global scale, but it's on a micro scale. It's a small scale. Okay. You're able to see things from your own personal viewpoint. Again, micro because you are living in it. You see it in your community. Where I grew up, there's a lot of cows, a lot of dairies. So dairies are using up a lot of the water, maybe the pollution, the smells. Okay, if you live in a bigger city, New York City, you're not going to be dealt with that problem. So that's seeing things from my point of view. Okay, some of the essential elements of social problems, of course, the objective condition, any aspect of society that can be viewed without bias. We see this problem as a real living problem, not seeing it to where well, it's just somebody's point of view. Um, this is poverty, hunger. You can see it. There's people starving, things like that. Subjective concerns is judgment based on personal feelings and opinions rather than external facts. So seeing things like racial discrimination. It could be some of your own personal feelings, how you interpret discrimination and things like that. One question that I would like to ask you now is think about global warming. Where would global warming fall in? Would it be under objective condition? Can it be viewed without bias? Or is it something that is subjective concerns? Are there facts that support it? I mean, with everything, we have facts that support are in favor of global warming. Then we have people who are against global warming, who have facts, actual data that goes against it. Okay. Another example that we have here is unemployment. This, of course, is objective. We can see the numbers. We can look at the data and see that there is an unemployment and how they are viewed, how they have gone up. This is not subjective. This is something we can actually see because you can see men 16 years or older in 2007 it was a 4.7. 3 years later it's up to 10.5%. Women in 2007 it was 4.5%. It is up to 8.6. So this is more the objective. Now, of course, what is causing the unemployment? Racial discrimination or maybe not enough education, things like that. That would fall under the subjective concerns. Okay, but this we can actually crunch the numbers, we can see, so this is how they differentiate. Let's move on to our next slide, slide 6. Factors that define a social problem. What is and is not considered a social problem can vary over time. The world is changing. A long time ago, there was problems that we had that are not current, or maybe they weren't in existence and they are now. Okay. An example that I read out of your textbook, is talking about gasoline. There was a problem with people's horses were getting stolen. You know, in the old West days, that's how we moved. That's how we transported goods, carriages, and stuff like that. Okay. Now we have, of course, fuel, gasoline-driven vehicles. Well, maybe in 50 years, we're going to have vehicles that are run on some totally alternative fuel, maybe electric or some other kind of energy, and they're not going to have to deal with gasoline problems anymore. So it is no longer an issue for them. So this is something that can happen over time. Okay, social movements. A long time ago, women who were not allowed to go to school. So if a woman was illiterate and couldn't read, it wasn't uncommon. Now, in today's society, things have changed. Women are allowed in schools. Women are allowed to get an education. So if there's illiteracy, so people who cannot read, that is a social problem. Okay. History changes the definition of social problems. Okay. So, back in the days, slave labor was used, and of course now we can't do it. There are laws against labor laws. Children were used. Child labor laws are put into effect. I know when I started working, I was 9 years old. Nobody really talked about it. Nobody really said anything. I looked a lot older than what I did. I looked 11 or 12, but I was still underage. Now, of course, there's laws against this. It's more. People are looking at IDs a lot more and things like that. Nobody gets paid under the table. Well, they shouldn't be paid under the table, but it's not as common as it was before. Other things that will influence this is cultural values. Okay. The culture of where you live. Another example, like I said, women who cannot read and being illiterate. In the United States, of course, this is a problem. Women can get an education and things like that. But there are still countries in our on our planet that do not allow women to go to school. Okay, they are not allowed to get an education. So in their culture, a woman who can't read is not seen the same way as it is in our country. So these are things that will impact the way we view things. There are five cultural values affected by global recession. Achievement and success, if you look up here in this corner, is one. What is it you want to accomplish in life? Many of us attach success to our level of education. Some people, if you value it with education and you can't afford your tuition to go to college, then of course it's a failure. Things like that. People who see success as getting a job, a high paying job. Well, maybe there's not a job, or maybe you live in a location where you can't get a job, therefore, you're not going to be considered a success. If you move over here, individual personality. Okay, we tend to believe because we're made good choices if we become successful. But most times, when things go bad, we blame others. We tend to look at other things. We do not blame ourselves. Okay. Material comfort, without income, without a good paying job, we can't get the house we want. We can't live comfortably. We can't do things like that. Progress often means moving forward. Of course, if you can't move forward, then you are stuck. Maybe you're in a rut. Um, you become depressed. Things like that. You always want to feel like you're moving forward. You're moving forward in your career. You're moving forward in your relationships. Activity and work. We value ourselves by what we do. So you have a job that you are very proud of. You're seen as a hardworking person. If you look at somebody who, couch potato, who lives at home, doesn't do anything, they're not valued. They're not seen as respectful. But somebody who wakes up every day in our culture, goes out, earns a paycheck, supports his family, that is something that is seen as very valuable, as someone who's seen as successful. Moving on to the next topic, factors that define social problems. Next ones, like I said, cultural universe. Social problems, things like this. Birth, death, crime, war, and a host of other issues. These are things that are common within our society. Of course, we still see them as social problems because they're occurring. Are also culturally universal. Every society has social problems, but how society deals with them varies from a great deal from place to place. How we handle unemployment in my region of the United States is handled differently in New York City, a bigger. Okay, things like that. Awareness is another factor. The ability of a person or group to bring a problem into public recognition. Many people do not realize there is a problem until it's been pointed out to them. Many people just see it as a way of life. That's the way it's always been. They don't see it as something that has been denied to them, so they do not think of it as a problem. They just assume it's that way of life. So bringing awareness to it will help generate attention, bring people more aware of this problem, spread the word. Things like this, awareness usually leads to social movements. Social movements are when groups of um, people get together to either support or protest something. In the 1960s, there were many, many different types of social movements that happened for women's rights, equal equality, things like that. These problems became more, so of course they started to generate momentum. They may have started in local areas and then moved forward. You can see they ended up marching in Washington, D.C., raising awareness and things like that. So that is something that is going on. Something that is more common, maybe you can see with dealing with sexuality, the transgender movement. So things like that is becoming more aware of. People are more speaking about it, becoming aware that people, are born this way. It's not something they're choosing. Um, it's biological and things like that. So things like that is generating interest. It's being more discussions are being held and things like that. So Charles Tilley, a 20th century American sociologist, looked at social movements and said there was three elements to all social movements. The first, of course, was campaigns, organized and ongoing efforts. Okay, so groups are established to go out and talk to politicians, or maybe there's just an awareness where they hold some sort of maybe a informational webinar or seminar, something like that. So where you can see and generate. Maybe they post a blog, have internet. In our society, of course, you can start a Facebook page just to raise awareness, things like that. Repertoire is actions used to promote interest and participation. They recruit, they get more people. Of course, advertising on Facebook, they can say, we're going to hold a rally. Please come to this day. I know this is something they've done recently with women's movements, Me Too, hashtag Me Too, things like that. For equal pay, whenever there's going to be a demonstration, they'll post it on Facebook. People will share it and tell other people, in your support of this, please come forward. Okay, the gay pride parades and things like that, they advertise them, get people can go out there, participate in it, even if you are part of the LGBT community or not, you can still be a part of it and show your participation. Worthiness, unity, numbers, and commitments of individuals involved. So, of course, this will lead them to talking to other people. They spread the information. They start talking to politicians, start changing laws, things like that. So, these are all the three elements common to social movements. This is what helps them become successful, gets the ball rolling, and gets them going. There's four stages of social movements. Of course, the first one will be emergence. This is the first stage where people become aware of the problem. They understand what is going on. And not only that, but they realize that there are other people that feel the same way as them. Okay. Step two, I'm sorry if I can't pronounce this correctly, coalescence is the second stage of the movement when groups reach out to other groups. So they reach out to the others. They ask, are there other people who feel this way? If you do, come join us. So this is where they can get more membership. They can increase their more numbers. You've all heard the term, there's strength in numbers. So more and more people become involved. More and more awareness is spread. Step three is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy. Bureaucratization is a third stage where the movement becomes a political force. Okay, they start demanding laws, they start demanding things that will help their, whatever they're for, become true, bills and stuff like that. Decline is the final stage of the movement when the organization finally completes its goals or is dismissed as irrelevant. Decline, of course, this could take many, many years. It doesn't happen overnight, it does take time. Look how long it took for equal rights to happen in the United States. Even after laws were passed, states still did pretty much the same thing they've always done. So it took a long, long time for um, change to happen. It's just not something that happens overnight. So social movements can be going on for many, 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 many years. Okay, and even then, that doesn't always mean that they are successful. The group will decide and accept what is acceptable, what isn't. Maybe they change focus. They got equal rights. So maybe now they can move on to another aspect of it and draw more attention to that. And then, kind of, I want to say baby steps where one is accomplished. Part A is accomplished, and then move on to part B, part C, deep, but they still keep going. They just may change the focus and stuff like that. Okay. If you have any questions after this lecture, please let me know. Please continue on reading and moving on with the chapter. Okay. Thank you.